Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Life with Zach. Today, we're going to continue with our local history series, talking about a variety of different places here in Shenandoah County, Virginia. If you want to check out some of these other videos that I've done in the past on other historic sites, if you go to my channel, there should be a playlist called History and another one called Shenandoah. Both of those contain local history sites from this area. So today's episode is actually going to focus on a place called originally the Casey Jones plant in Woodstock, Virginia. But today it's known more popularly as the Woodstock Brew House. So what happens is, starting in the 1920s, clothing and textile manufacturing become pretty popular in Shenandoah County. There was a readily available workforce, and some of these textile places that had operated in New England were looking for new places to come where they could get cheaper workers. One such group was the Casey Jones Work Clothes Company. Now, Casey Jones Work Clothes Company were an early manufacturer of what we might today call denim. They come up eventually with what we kind of today know as blue jeans, but early on they were manufacturing denim overalls as work clothes. All right. What they do is they open several plants in the Shenandoah Valley. One's in Mount Jackson, one's in the town of Shenandoah, one's in the town of Luray, one's in the town of Elkton, and one of those opens in Woodstock. Now, not only do they produce these denim overhauls, but they provide steady employment for hundreds of locals, especially women. Now, at the time, it was unusual for women to get industrial jobs or really any type of job that wasn't specifically related to what was known as a female task. So maybe something like being a teacher or a nurse or something specific to women at the time. But Casey Jones opens these up to women, these new industrial jobs, because they involve sewing, which was considered to be a women's work. So they're able to connect them into these new good-paying jobs. Now, Casey Jones builds their plant on East Court Street in Woodstock, Virginia. It's one of the early manufacturing plants built in Woodstock during the 20th century. So it's what we may call a more modern industrial plant. Versus ones that existed during the 19th century, which survive along Commerce Street in Woodstock. This plant had some unique features like the first fire protection sprinkler system in Woodstock. It had industrial sewing machines and was basically designed with a floor of sewers on the first floor and then a basement area where scraps and trash were all pushed. And then where supplies and things came in and where things were shipped out of. Now, the plant really became busy during the Second World War. The federal government needed a lot of items, including bell bottoms for the Navy. And Casey Jones was one of the primary makers of these denim bell bottoms used for sailors. So Casey Jones was a major war producer, making these textiles, these clothing for the Navy. Their operations expanded, and the Dungarees were produced here on East Court Street in Woodstock. There were several shifts, and business were so good that the payroll exceeded $5,000 a week. Today, that's about $90,000. So you can tell they were employing quite a few people and actually paying pretty good wages. Now, in September 1943, this plant was recognized when it was awarded the Army-Navy E Award of Excellence. Now, the E Award of Excellence was presented to companies who achieved excellence in production for war equipment and other items that were being used by the armed forces. There were a lot of criteria, but basically it was related to safety and efficiency and production, and people who were doing well in producing things for the war effort in a way that advanced our march towards victory. Now, only 5% of the more than 85,000 companies that were involved in producing material for the U.S. military were awarded this honor. So it was really a unique thing for Casey Jones. So they keep making dungarees here on East Court Street until after World War II, and then Casey Jones is actually purchased by a company called Bluebell Inc. Now, Bluebell Inc. later takes the Casey Jones dungarees and introduces Wrangler jeans. So remember I said that Casey Jones led to one of the early productions of jeans in the country. And Wrangler jeans are really introduced by Bluebell using what had been done with Casey Jones. Now, Bluebell continues to operate the plant on East Court Street until 1956. At this time, that plant is really too small for what's needed. It's being overutilized, and Bluebell builds a new plant on the southern end of the town of Woodstock. They sell this building and would have a lot of uses over the next several decades, including a realty office, a retail shop, and in the 1980s and 1990s, it was home to a radio station and Channel 10 TV, which was a locally produced Woodstock area news channel. They make a lot of changes to the building. They add and remove different parts of the facade, different decorative features, a couple small additions, some real interior changes. And then in the 21st century, it's purchased by the company that later becomes the Woodstock Brew House. They basically do a renovation of the facility with the intent of restoring it to as close as possible to what it looked like when it was the Casey Jones plant, or at least on the exterior. And you can tell today that it does have a lot of the original features that was when it was used by Casey Jones. The Woodstock Brew House makes a variety of local brews. They sell food. They have a series of 12 beers or more on tap. And they really are a central part of kind of the local restaurant scene in downtown Woodstock. And if you ever stop to visit, you'll see even on the interior, there's local things that remain from Casey Jones, and some of the designs and like the floors and the way it is even on the interior still retain some of those original features. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion of the Casey Jones plant in Woodstock, Virginia, its war effort, and what it was utilized afterwards, and then eventually becoming the Woodstock Brew House. If you found value in this, I always appreciate a like, a comment with anything that you want to know more, anything you would like for me to explore, or anything else you want to share about this historic site. And as always, if you feel interested, hit the subscribe button so you can capture local history videos as they come out, and also other information that I share through other types of videos. Hope you enjoyed again, and hope you have a wonderful day.